What brings together a country home, ladies' leather gloves and 2 world wars? I'm here at Hatchlands Park in Surrey to show you a unique survival of the First World War, a waistcoat made from 50 leather gloves. The waistcoat was made by the Ladies Territorial Committee. They employed over 60 women to make these waistcoats out of donated leather gloves to keep soldiers and sailors warm on the front. We know it was worn by Navy signaller Harrie Joseph, who fought in the First World War until 1915, when he returned home to England injured.
During the First World War, we know that Hatchlands was a convalescent hospital. There aren't many records that survive, but we know that there were 14 beds here in 1917 for ranks other than officers. We can't say for certain that Harrie Joseph was here, but the waistcoat came with a tag that said he'd convalesced here. It was from a local museum and was given to a charity shop. That charity shop saw the tag and contacted us to see if we would like it. We didn't know quite how unique it was at the time, but I could see it was something special, and I really wanted it here to be able to share that story with all of our visitors.
I'm here at the National Trust Textile Conservation Studio in Norfolk to visit the waistcoat and see how our conservators are preparing it for photography and display. The Ladies Territorial Committee were one of the most challenging groups to research. They didn't leave a very strong footprint in the past, so we had to look back through hundreds of newspaper clippings and archives to try and find a trace of them. It was through these newspaper articles, primarily their appeals, letters that their members had written into newspapers to try and get people to donate their gloves, that we were able to patch together a picture of this incredible organisation. We were certain after doing all this research that the waistcoat was a product of the Ladies Territorial Committee, but it was only when we unfolded the waistcoat itself here in the studio that we found the maker's stamp that read Ladies Territorial Committee, 75 Chancery Lane, London, waistcoat 900.
When me and Helen have been looking at the item together, we were counting the gloves and just generally assessing the object. And as we were going through that process of looking, which is really important for us, we discovered a stamp. And when we discovered the stamp, we couldn't quite make it out. It was like, what actually is that? Because it's quite blurry. So I said to her, let's try the UV torch, which is something we do use in conservation quite a lot. It's just useful sometimes because you see different depths of colour and shade. So we had a little look and it did make the stamp a little bit clearer, so just enough to be able to deduce that it was the 900th waistcoat, which is just so lovely. The National Trust Textile Conservation Studio is the National Trust's only in-house specialist textile conservation studio. So I think there's about 150,000 textile items in the National Trust collection, and my job is very lucky. I get to work on amazing textiles from all the properties across the country that get sent here to the studio in Norfolk, and we are quite in the middle of nowhere. This really amazing leather waistcoat. It's the only one we know is still in existence. It's a really fascinating and quite unique item that I've been really privileged to work on. I'm always there at the point where the professional photography is happening, and for me that is just like the pinnacle of the work on that particular item of clothing, that I'm there to see it in all of its shining glory and working with a photographer so that it looks just how we want it, that things are captured correctly. Yeah, it's just a really special moment for me.
Hatchlands played its own role in the First World War. Soldiers and sailors would come here for rest and respite after fighting on the front to recover in the beautiful grounds of this country house. We know that the waistcoat was worn by Harrie Joseph, a Navy signaller who lived nearby in Epsom. Harrie joined the Navy around the age of 16, and we know he fought in the First World War. He would have worn the waistcoat under his uniform, having received it in the winter months of 1914 to keep him warm against the bitter cold. It was so warm that during the Second World War, years later, his daughter Lorna wore it during her own fire watch duty. I love the story of this waistcoat. It speaks to the resilience and resourcefulness of the people during the First World War who were desperately trying to help the soldiers and sailors on the front in any way that they possibly can. This is probably the last surviving example of a waistcoat made by the Ladies Territorial Committee during the First World War, as we haven't been able to find another in any other national collections. It features in the National Trust book, 100 Things to Wear, fashion from the collections of the National Trust. And by telling its story here at Hatchlands and in the pages of that book, we keep the stories of those real people who made it and wore it alive.